when people are talking. I think so much we want to say what's on our mind that a lot of times what gets lost in communication is us not even listening. So we're not even talking the same frequency if we're not actually paying attention to what someone is explaining and sharing with us.
Right. And I feel like the art of listening is that you feel heard, right? It's not that you're hearing the words I'm saying. It's like I feel like I have a connection with this person, that they're listening to me. And when we can learn to listen to somebody and hear what they're saying instead of maybe how they're saying it or how they're expressing it, that's how we help people along the whole plan of life, I think.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with a very special guest, Heidy LaFleur. How are you doing today, Heidi?
I'm great, Jeremy. How are you?
I can't complain. We finally got our schedules aligned. By schedules aligned, I mean I looked at the right week this time.
Yes, right. Hey, that's okay. That's just how life is.
It's great. It really is how life is. I had thought it was last week, and then, you know, I start actually looking at the calendar and realize that I'm sitting in my studio by myself waiting for something that wasn't about to happen. And then I quickly was like, I'll check the calendar one more time, and then we made it work though.
We made it work. You got it.
So I always like to kick off the show just talking about the importance of networking. How are we connected?
We're connected through Ace Branding, and I've been working with them to help me create articles and create some marketing opportunities and get on some podcasts. So they worked hard to figure out people who I would make sense if I was on their podcast. And so we got connected through that. And I have a story about Into the Unknown, and I definitely took a dive into the unknown. So, you provide that platform. So here I am to share that story.
Heidi, what I really appreciate about Ace Branding, they do a great job of not just connecting people. It's one thing if you went through a list of podcasts, hey, you should be on this. I love that there's a reason why we're talking. As you mentioned and alluded to, it's that journey, that story of the unknown.
Yes. And I agreed 100%. It's not, it wasn't just, oh, here, get on these podcasts. It was what makes sense for Heidi's story. Where would it be highlighted? And it's all about connection, right? It's about connecting people together and sharing their stories that will help somebody else grow, hopefully. And I feel like that's what they really rely on.
Absolutely. As a storyteller, I think it's so important to have those great characters in your stories and in sharing other people's stories.
Yes. Nothing like sharing stories.
I want to know that comic book issue number one, that origin story. Who are you?
That origin story. I am a girl from Iowa who went to college in Iowa, played volleyball, and met my husband there. He was a football player. He was from the big city of Chicago. So he dragged me to the big city, and I've lived here ever since. I'm a teacher, I'm a mom. I used to be a former school administrator. I thought I was going to be a teacher forever, and I am a teacher forever, a teacher, a coach, a consultant, all kinds of things. The greatest thing I am is a mom of a family who lives through the trauma cycle and the mental health roller coaster that is real life. And that's who I am. I feel like that whole wanting to be a teacher and wanting to help my entire life, regardless of where I lived or who I was, that is exactly who I am. And wanting to, I call it bettering the ball, or always being a part of the solution, not a part of the problem, because I feel like no matter where you go, no matter where you work, no matter who you're with, your actions and words and expressions can be either a part of the problem or a part of the solution. So I just teach differently now. I don't teach in a classroom. I get to teach adults, and I teach adults all about social emotional understanding, trauma informed practices, and that there's nothing better than that satisfaction of teaching people and leaving that mark, making people feel okay, feeling vulnerable, feeling like, oh, I am going to be okay in this life, because life is hard, and I feel like the more we can help each other out, the better we can be.
I could not agree more, Heidi. I think it's so important in talking about ideas like mental health and just letting people know they're not alone. And Also, besides just saying they're not alone, giving them practical tools and ways to work throughout life, because we can't always put life on hold. It's finding ways to adapt and survive.
Without a doubt, that those coping skills, and I love that you said strategies, because that's what I realized being a school principal. I had lots of teachers who weren't, they were there to teach curriculum, and I was trying to help them understand we are teaching curriculum, but guess what? We're teaching curriculum to kids, and we're teaching human beings. So just because you want to teach your math, kids come in with a lot of stuff, you come in with a lot of stuff, but nowhere in becoming a teacher, becoming a parent, does anybody sit down and talk about behavior, or talk about trauma, or talk about mental health? So that's what I feel like I've done is I try to make it practical. I try to make it raw and real and say, this is how it works. This is what happens to your brain, right? When trauma happens or mental health happens. And these are some strategies we can use to be proactive, because so often in school or with our own kids, we're reactive to behavior, and it comes out in punishment. And the thing is, kids aren't bad. They're not born bad. They're not trying to be bad. They're not trying to upset us. Feel like all behavior is communication, but lots of times adults, we don't have tools. So that's what I've created, lots of practical tools that we can use the next day, the next hour, to help our kids be the best they can be, and also preserve our own mental health, because working with people isn't always easy, right? Because we're all on different pages at different times in our lives, but streamlining that process a little bit to give people the actual strategies that it takes to find that inner peace, not only working with kids, but within yourself as well.
Heidi, I love that you mentioned that the tools that you need to succeed. Of course, we think more traditional classroom, but I think also it's those well-being, that mental tools, and just I think a lot of times children and adults, obviously, they usually sometimes only have like three ranges of emotions: happy, mad, and sad.
Mhm.
Whether I think one of the important things is, especially with younger people, is teaching them this wide variety of emotions and how to feel and why you feel. And I think it's one of those things that really makes a more well-rounded person.
Without a doubt. And like you mentioned, the three feelings, it's like teaching people that you can have any emotion in the world, you can have any feeling that you want, but there's so many times that kids, even adults, don't know what to do with that. And that's what this is about, right? So when we get dysregulated and we get escalated, what do I do with that anger or that disappointment? Or how do I win? How do I lose? And helping people understand, especially in the school setting, that we have to teach expected behavior. We can't just expect it to happen. But that's the protocol. That's what we do. We throw a kid in detention, or we throw a kid in suspension, and we expect their behavior to change. But everything we know about behavior, that's not how it happens, right? It takes a lot of practice, a lot of repetition. And so practicing those skills and helping people understand that it doesn't always have to be punitive. It can be growth and relationship oriented process, just to help people be the best that they can be.
What made you want to go into education to begin with?
I have always loved people. I don't know what it is. Like when I was little, we used to play, I was the oldest of three girls, so we would play school in the basement, and I was always the teacher. And my sisters will say it was because I was bossy, but I don't think it was that. I think it was like I feel like I was a born leader, and I want to lead people, and I want to help, and I want to make a difference. And I was never afraid to speak up, and I feel like you can speak up respectfully. It's not that you have to be mouthy to speak up, but when you truly have something to say and you sit back and you learn the art of listening to people and what needs to happen, I feel like that's when you can go forward and be that voice of reason. And I feel like that's what teaching is. I've always tried to see the best in people, tried to see that as a teacher, I always said it's about how are you smart, not how smart are you. Because to me, everybody, you have strengths 100%. And in school, sometimes those strengths are, people just want to look at test scores, or they want to look at, did you graduate with all AP classes? Did you get an offer to go to Harvard? That's not what it's about. And so for me, wanting to be a teacher was about finding success in everybody and figuring out, what does success look like for you? What does it look like for you? And helping people understand sometimes success is that our kids show up to school, right? I mean, and they might need to sleep a little bit. They might need to eat a little bit. They might be crabby. But the fact that they got there, that's success. And that's not always recognized. So I feel like I've always wanted to be a teacher. I've always wanted to help. I've always wanted to alleviate some of that distress that life brings to us. And so that's just what I've always wanted and what I just continue to thrive to be.
You mentioned the art of listening. I love that. Actively listening when people are talking. I think so much we want to say what's on our mind that a lot of times what gets lost in communication is us not even listening. So we're not even talking the same frequency if we're not actually paying attention to what someone is explaining and sharing with us.
Right. And I feel like the art of listening is that you feel heard, right? It's not that you're hearing the words I'm saying. It's like I feel like I have a connection with this person, that they're listening to me. And I have had a lot of practice with that throughout my life, being a teacher, being an administrator, being married, like being a mom, being all kinds of things in life. I feel like if you want to have successful relationships, it's got to be reciprocal, and you have to listen to what somebody else wants, but help them feel heard. And that is huge with kids who've been traumatized and kids who take frequent detours from what we expect. Because again, like I said earlier, behavior is communication. So if you're behaving in a certain way and I just throw that behavior out the door and punish it, I'm not listening to truly what you're telling me, right? Because sometimes, well, I know behavior changes the brain, but so does relationships and so does healing. And when we can learn to listen to somebody and hear what they're saying instead of maybe how they're saying it or how they're expressing it, that's how we help people along the whole plan of life, I think.
I couldn't agree more. Just letting people know their feelings are valid, however they're
Yes.
feeling. Obviously, some of it is not coming out in the way that we would see socially normal, but I think a lot of it is getting to the bottom of what's really causing that. My background's education as well, and I just remember those moments where maybe the kid caused a scene in class. 9 times out of 10, it had nothing to do with that day or that week.
Mhm.
Maybe it was the straw that broke the camel's back, but you start talking to them and you realize there's something more meaningful, or it's a combination of a lot of emotions they're feeling.
Yes, and I always tell educators, I say, "Do you see your kids?" And then I'll say, "I'm seeing all of you right now, but I don't have any eye contact with you, right? I'm seeing you. You're there. We're here. We're having class." I said, "But when you truly see people, you look into their eyes and you listen to them and you hear their stories. And like you said, you dig a little bit deeper, right? You don't just see the surface of the behavior. You see what's going on. What's going on at home. Why would somebody act like that?" And I try to share, it's not about kids giving us a hard time, it's that they're having a hard time. And when we can turn our perspective to people are having a hard time, it changes your whole mental status. And a lot of times education, people are very burned out, people are worried about pay, they're worried about all these things. But when you can find that inner peace as a teacher, that I feel like I've found through the years of really realizing that it's people don't wake up to make your life hell. Like that's not what it is, right? They wake up and they're going through lots of things, and then they come and they take it out on you, but it's not personal. Like you said, there's something going on that we have to figure out. And when you build those relationships with the kids, it's unbelievable what you start to hear and you start to understand, and then you see that behavior differently.
I couldn't agree more. It's building that simple but rapid rapport with students, from remembering their names when they walk in after the first day you meet them to just remembering little things about them. You obviously, as an educator, you hear everything, and so it's deciding what you're picking up on. They mention that they love the Packers or they love the Brewers. Maybe name drop that in your lesson plans or something, or how you're not a fan of the Cubs. You can always mention that.
Yes. Or how you are a fan of the Cubs and how the Cubs are amazing and how the Bears are just going to be so good this year. I mean, yeah, right. It depends, right? And you have to be able to joke too, because if they like a different team, like you and I obviously like different teams, we have to be able to joke with each other and figure things out together, but still have that relationship, right? Because we can disagree and still be respectful and still have a good time and still have a good relationship. But that is what it is. It's like letting the kids be heard and seen. And I feel like as people, we do that by what are people wearing? What are they talking about? Who are they hanging out with? And then you start to get to know them a little bit better and realize you're both just human beings trying to figure out this crazy world that we live in. And I think that's pretty comforting when we realize that at the end of the day, a lot of our goals are the exact same.
Heidi, so much of it is exactly what you're saying. I think it's so much meeting them on their level. And that's not like an intellectual level, that is a social normative level. And I just remember when I was teaching, it was a social studies class teaching about World War One. That was a very long time ago for me. and especially for students. And so it's trying to go back and find that common ground. Raise your hand. Did any of your parents, grandparents serve in World War I? Maybe some new, go World War II. Okay, let's go back to Vietnam. You just keep working their way back. And I was at a more rural school up in Wisconsin, and it was like, all right, do you have anyone in your family or your friends that were in the military? By that point, everyone's hands go up, and then you start to compare and contrast of what life was like in World War I trenches to what maybe your modern day soldier sees. And again, just meeting them on the same field.
Right. And that 100%, because that's when you make it real for them, right? And I think the best teachers too, you can teach about the wars, you can teach about history, you can teach about all kinds of things, but man, when you make it real for them, right? Help them understand what it's really like, or help them understand. Like I remember when I was an assistant principal and we would take 8th graders to Washington, D.C. And it was one of my first times in Washington, D.C. ever. And I was just overwhelmed with awesomeness, right? Like, it's like, if somebody would have showed me this when I was learning about history, it would make more sense to me. It would have so much more meaning. It would, instead of just reading from a book or somebody lecturing, but getting to that level and, putting yourself in that situation. And what would you do? What would it be like? And, exactly as you said, just making it meaningful for them. I think that's the best way to get through to people.
Could not agree more. I laugh because I had my seventh grade social studies on this podcast, and I always joke with him that he was the first person I got to actually interview someone. I ended up interviewing my grandfather, who's since passed on, about his experiences in World War II. And to have that as my little amateur pseudo historian at the time, and to have the opportunities what I've done now, is just one of those remarkable connection points in class.
Absolutely. And it's meaningful to you, so it's going to be meaningful to the kids, right? Because if you loved it and whatever you got from it, it brings out the light in you, and then you get to really shine that on the kids. And I think that's why, to me, teaching is the greatest profession in the world. It is really, really, really difficult, but I don't think there's anything better. I don't know.
What was your first day in the classroom like?
First day in the classroom, I'm going to tell you, those kids are like 32 now, and they have babies, and it's insane. But I was a fourth grade teacher in Chicago, and I had 29 little fourth graders with me. And I remember I had a set of twins, and we had a good day. It was a pretty good day. And then at the very end of the day, kids were lining up to go home, and one of the twins fell and cracked his head, needed stitches, completely freaked out. And here I'm, this new teacher, I'm freaking out because I'm like, I'm going to be in trouble. I'm going to be in trouble. Like, it was a total accident, right? And everybody was really cool with it. But I will never forget that. I will never forget. I thought I was in so much trouble. And when the assistant principal came and she's like, Heidi, accidents happen. It's okay. And so I was like, okay, it's going to be okay. And I still keep in touch with those kids, right? They're always going to be my kids. And I love that. So that's what I remember about day one.
It's so funny you mentioned that. I think I tell people I've been fortunate. I've done ESPN, I've done sports stuff, I've done all that. Your first day in a classroom, I don't know if you can compare the nerves to anything. I can talk to anyone at this point after standing up in a front of a group of seventh graders.
Yes, especially seventh or eighth graders. Yes, because they're gonna test you to the nth degree, right? But I feel like that's where so much confidence comes from, when you can teach kids and be in front of kids. Because what's so cool, I think, is you can be your authentic self. You can be goofy, you can be crazy, you can just be yourself. And then when you take that to the rest of the world, which I feel like that's what we do, right? We can be whoever we are, no matter where we are. You're on ESPN, you're on talk show, you can just be you. And I think that's the pinnacle of inner peace and confidence, is just being able to do that, which I love.
I could not agree more. It makes life a lot easier. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yes.
So, on everyone's journey, you can make a decision. You can go east, you can go west. Make a decision not knowing the outcome. Can you give me a time you did that in your life?
Yeah, I can tell you, I was 6 years into being a principal. I was 25 years into my career, 6 years into being a principal, working through helping kids, helping students, helping parents, helping everybody, right? And living that trauma cycle at home with my own family. I was losing it. I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and I thought that was only in the movies, right? I didn't know that was real, but I couldn't function, and I was faking it every single day. It was hard to get out of bed. It was hard to fight through things. I was very defensive. I was very disappointed. I was very sad. And I didn't know what was going on with me, but I knew I needed a change. I knew something had to change in my life. And I remember the day in April, it was pouring down rain. I was leaving school. It was my last year of being a principal. I called my husband and I was sobbing and I said, babe, I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, I can't go to school every day anymore and take care of all these people when I can't take care of myself and I can't take care of my own family because of all the turmoil that's going on in our lives. I said, but I'm a teacher. I will always be a teacher. And I think I need to take my staff of 80 and turn it into the entire world. And that's when I got the idea that that was going to be my last year in education in an educational setting. I was going to start my own business. I had no business starting a business because I don't have any business background, right? But I said, I have a why that needs to be heard. And I said, I have teachers, I have coaches, I have parents who need to understand what behavior is, why it happens, the understanding of mental health in our world, that it's not just, it's not bogus, it's real. It's very, very real. And I have to help people with those strategies. And so I basically went from resigning after 25 years of knowing exactly what I was going to do every fall to holy crap, what am I going to do now? I don't have a paycheck. I don't have insurance, right? Got on my husband's insurance. I substitute taught for a while. I got my insurance license. I didn't know what to do. I started to build content. And then it came to me. I was like, nope, I'm going to do this. I started to do free speaking engagements. I started to talk about my story. I started to talk about how we can help kids and why it's about kids being how they're smart, not how smart are you, and what success looks like for different people. And so I didn't know what was going to happen. I was scared to death. I took the greatest leap of faith in the world. My husband had faith in me. I told him today, even I said, either you were crazy and you were just like, oh, I'm going to let her do what she wants because she's losing her mind, or you really believed in me. And he said, I believed in you 100%. I've never stopped believing in you. And so now, a few years later, I have my own business. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm Heidy with a Y, right? And so I get to go around the whole country and give keynotes and workshops and deliver content that is so raw and so meaningful to help people understand people better. And it's I didn't know what was going to happen, but I can tell you, looking back at that fork in the road, I didn't know whether I was going to go bankrupt, right? And lose my house or I was going to be, I knew I was going to be successful somehow. I just didn't know what it was going to be. And so I look back on all that hard work and all of that craziness and that leap of faith that I took. And I will never look back. I will just keep going. And I don't see a ceiling to what I'm doing. Like I just always think there's going to be more opportunities. There's going to be, more people's lives I can help. And that's there's so much satisfaction and beauty in that.
Heidi, I firmly believe everything you're saying. I think so much of that, taking that leap of faith, going into the unknown is just one of those exciting things. Of course, don't get me wrong, it's terrifying in the moment. But the next time you have to do something like that, it's a little less terrifying. I always
Yeah.
compare it to like a amusement park, a roller coaster ride. You're going to go up and you're hitting that giant dip. You can feel it in the pit of your stomach. It feels like everything might be wrong, but for whatever reason, this is going to work out. I don't know exactly how it is in this exact moment. It's not how I maybe envisioned it, but it will work out.
Yes. What's so cool? I can't agree more with that because I've lost all fear. And that's what I love the most is that I have myself to rely on and I know I can rely on myself, right? I know that I know I'm going to do it. I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't know how that next book's going to come out. I don't know how that next, keynote's going to be, but I know it's going to be okay. And I think that that's the greatest thing that I've learned and gained from going into the unknown and taking a leap of faith is, holy crap, I can do anything. I can do anything and it's going to be okay. And that is an awesome feeling to wake up every day. It's not that my life is perfect and awesome and all the time. It's not, right? There's issues, there's stuff, but I always know it's going to be okay. And that feels really, really good.
Heidi, title of the podcast, Into the Unknown. What are you working on right now? What do you have going on in your business?
Right now, I just finished June. My second book was published called Soaring Balloons and Heavy Shackles, turning trauma research into practice. So taking that trauma research and helping people understand why the brain does what it does and then what we can do about it. So I just published that book. And then I'm on a nationwide book study. So having groups of people sign up for this book study that takes both of my books, actually, one called Those Kids Are Our Kids, and the one I just talked about, Soaring Balloons and Heavy Shackles, reading those, taking the discussion guides, and actually talking about it, because I think that's where we learn, we discuss. So I've created those discussion guides for people. I have live events that they'll get to attend, and then some recorded events that I'm going to throw in as well. So that's one thing that I'm working on. I'm really excited about. And the other thing is online classes. So helping people get through, understand what it truly means to be trauma informed. Not that you have some plaque on the wall that says you're trauma informed, helping them turn it into a verb, right? Because just because you have a piece of paper doesn't mean you do it. So the online classes that are going to be on my website soon are about helping you be trauma informed, helping you understand behavior, helping you find that inner peace as a person, right? And taking the perspective that people are having a hard time, not so much giving you a hard time. So those are the big things now. I know I will write another book. I just don't know when. After I publish one, I'm like, I got to stop. I can't do it again. And then I get the itch in a couple of years and I'll do it again.
Heidi, if people want to learn more about you and everything you have going on, where can they find you?
They can go to my website, www.heidylafleur.com. You could Google my name, Heidy LaFleur, or Heidi with a W-H-Y-Y. You can find me on Twitter under Heidy LaFleur. I'm on LinkedIn, Heidi with a Y. I'm on Instagram, Heidy LaFleur. So basically, anywhere you go on those social media outlets, you type in my name, just make sure Heidi is with a Y, and I will be there.
Well, Heidi, I want to thank you again for taking the time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it. And it's always just great to connect with people who have similar visions.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you were a teacher, because that means you're a teacher always. I'm sorry that you're a Packers fan, but it's okay. It'll be okay. I'll come to Lambeau and we can have a really good time there. But thank you, Jeremy, for the opportunity. I love it so much. I love the connection and appreciate the opportunity.
We'll talk soon.
Okay, take care. Thank you.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.